recording of this session. Thanks, Rosie. So those who cannot join for whatever reason have a possibility to listen to it afterwards. So, if you allow me, I will start. Thanks to everyone for joining this session. It was offered in a really short notice, but the reason offering this session is to give you a possibility to have a general understanding of what the program database is, because I know you are right in front of decision whether you will be able to implement at least lean version of program database for the sake of implementation of new sponsorship software. And due to the fact that the lean version of the database is not available yet, I have decided to give you at least some feeling of what the full version is. That might help you to discuss this issue within your teams and take a final decision about implementation, or also maybe ask me some questions that are still open and you need some support and clarification about. So that's the main reason of today's gathering, I would say, today's telco. And thanks to all of you for joining in such a short notice. And not to lose any minute, I will right away dive into presentation. A few slides about the database, and then I will show you the database itself, basically. So today I would still like to give you a general understanding to explain what the program database is, basically. What are the main elements and the features of the database, how member associations are using it, how database is used on a higher levels, meaning on the level of regional office, on the level of international office, what are the major benefits for end users and also for you as representatives of national offices, as well as what are some, let's say, limitations, or what are the issues related to implementations of the database, which I know are quite important for you, such as, for instance, information about data protection, information about data processing in the system, and so on. So those aspects of the systems that put some obstacles in your member associations to implement the system. So in general, just to mention, currently the database is being implemented by FBC module. Here I'm basically focused on FBC module. Is implemented by 16 member associations in our region, and the invitation for this call was sent to 7 member associations, to all of you, where implementation has not yet started or is not considered. Full implementation of program database is not considered due to the fact that in your countries there are certain legislative barriers for implementation of program database, as far as we are informed, or they are state databases that basically makes implementation of SOS database irrelevant to some extent, because as minimum it duplicates the work for program co-workers. These are the reasons known for us. If there are any additional reasons, please let us know during this talk. But as far as I know, for majority of your national associations, these are the major reasons, or combination of both, in fact. The program database for us primarily has it's a data management system with a major objective of providing a possibility of monitoring and evaluating data, monitoring and evaluating progress about children, families, and communities. This is a major essence of the program database. Basically, it's a monitoring and evaluation tool universal monitoring and evaluation tool, which was created internally in the organization, which follows the logic of child and family development as we understand it in our care system. And respectively, it's a system that supports, on the one side, to store the data on children and families, and on the other side to follow up and monitor the progress that is done by the children and families from the day of entry to SS services till the day of exit from those services, would that be family-based care or family strengthening. Information that can be obtained respectively from the system supports coworkers on different levels. If the data is obtained about individual child, it can support social worker in program in, I don't know, in SOS Children's Village Tirana, let's say, as example, to follow up development of one specific particular child, to monitor whether the child has made any progress from the date of entry till the date of last review. A part of this individual monitoring on a higher level, would that be, for instance, national office, you can follow up development and performance, let's say, of your programs in accordance with specific indicators. For instance, if you as a national FPC advisor are interested in what is the average educational performance in program X or Y, let's say again SOS program Children's Village Tirana or Youth Facility Tirana, you as a representative of national office have a possibility to aggregate report from the system that will show you a general trend for the facility you are interested in and for specific indicator you are interested in. I will show you those reports. I will show you how it is being done in practice, but here I just want to mention a general logic that the system supports us to follow up individual developments as well as to follow up trends on the level of specific services, specific program units, basically. And respectively, of course, we all on the level of national office or even on the regional and global levels can successfully use this information because they inform main trends in program development area, and they should support ideally you as a national management your national management team in taking important decisions regarding, for instance, development of specific services, or the data can inform you about major reasons of exit for children from programs, which can give you approximate understanding about successfulness of your programs, as well as which services, for instance, led to this or that outcome for programs for program participants. And respectively, you can use this data successfully for important decision-making processes and for following up, as I mentioned just a minute ago, general trends in program development. So this is so much to say about the major purpose of a program database and the way it is used up till now by those member associations that are using it as these member associations, those 16 MAs that are using database have decided to use it for a full extent. And this respectively gives them a possibility to monitor individual development, to aggregate different reports, and to use information for different decision-making processes. Are there any immediate questions about purpose of the program database? Okay, then I go on. This graph just represents the stages in implementation of program where the database could serve as a good tool for in order to inform important decision-making processes or as systems that contain data. For instance, the indicators that are or data around key dimensions and indicators that are being collected in the system can be successfully used at a time of entry of a child family into our programs. And in this case, this data can be used as a, so to say, baseline data on a later stage when you would, for instance, be interested to compare situation of program participants against a baseline. So against the time when these program participants entered your program or your service. Respectively, once you have a baseline data with a certain frequency, with a certain intervals, you are supposed to do data review that is archived by the system, and you at every point of time you are able basically to get the latest status quo on individual child or for entire program unit, again for specific indicator or specific dimension. Would that be health, or would that be education, or any other area that is interesting for you? Then, respectively, the system also supports you to analyze a situation or a child or a family at a time, or a young person at a time of exiting from our system, for which the system will very soon have a separate module. And last but not least, the system is designed in such a way that it supports you also to do a follow-up assessment of former program participants in case, of course, those former program participants are interested to participate, so to say, in follow-up assessment and are cooperative in this respect. As regard to the type of information or type of data we are having or collecting with the support of this system, if we link it to different types of the results, we may say that we are collecting information on the level of outputs. In this case, we are mainly talking about number of beneficiaries. We are collecting information about service statistics. We are collecting information about key development indicators and services provided to children and so on. Another type of results around which the data is being collected and stored in the system are outcomes. In this case, we're collecting information not only about number of participants, but for instance, number of children and young people with successful reintegration into their families of origin, or number of children and young people who have successfully exited from programs. And under this exit, we mean different dimensions which are being measured at a time of exit, such as, for instance, a level of employment, level of income, and sufficiency of income. So basically, this system can also support you to monitor self-reliance of young people at the time of exit from program, or self-reliance of families, if we're also talking about family strengthening. And last but not least, we are also collecting data about the system can support you to collect data and store the data that can attribute efforts of our organization and can support you to understand whether you have made any contribution on a impact on a wider level, on the level of individual, but also on the level of community you are implementing your services. So again, if we look into this graph, it mainly underlines the major purpose of the system, which is which may support your member association to conduct proper monitoring and evaluation activities on the level of individual child, young person, on the level of family, and on the level of community we are having programs. What are the key elements of the system? The major element, and so meaning the major data that we are entering into the system, is about child. Apart from the child, there is some type of information, not that extensive, of course, as about child, which we are entering about caregiver. In this case, we are talking about family of origin in case of FS, but also about SOS caregiver or foster parent. Also some information about community and house, and information about program unit. These are major 4 elements of the database. But of course, the major data that is being entered, the major information, is entered around of a child. And in this case, I would like immediately to show you the real database where you can get a feeling of what does it mean to enter the data about the child. In this case, for instance, this is how the database looks like. Here I'm in a test system, and I will try to go to a child to show you what type of data are we talking about. First of all, this is the software which you open when you work with a program database. This is how it looks on the level of program, also for an end user, for your social worker, usually. And when a social worker wants to add a new child, for instance, in the system, he is just with few ticks. For instance, I will choose National Association of Albania, I will choose Children's Village Tirana, I will choose Family House number 1, and there I will try to add a new child. And what does it practically mean to add a child? Let me cross-check. Rosie, do you see my screen? Yeah? Do you see a database? Yeah? Mm-hmm. So this is basically how we are adding children into the system. Here you see there are some tabs or developmental areas according to which we are entering the data about the child. And in this respect, you can immediately see that there is nothing different from what we are doing, for instance, with our case management, with individual development planning process. We are entering general information about the child. We are entering information about admission, about health, about psychosocial development, about education, about participation, about child protection, about livelihood, I will explain what does it mean, about family of origin. These are the major fields, and about living care. These are the major data fields, the major areas for which we are entering information. I believe it reminds many of you case management or child development planning and major areas for which we are usually entering, collecting and following up information about the child. However, it does not mean that even when you are working with a full version of the database, that you are obliged to fill in all the data which can be found in the database. In the database, we usually distinguish mandatory and optional data fields. So basically, this is a data field. Exit plan in place, or let me go into general. Child ID, child first name, child gender. This is what we call a data field. And already now you can see that some data fields are, so to say, marked in red, and some data fields are just gray, let's put it this way. So those data fields that are in red immediately notify us that these are the mandatory data fields. And these are the data fields that are really must to be filled in by those member associations that are using full version of PDB. Here you can also see that for a child entity, there are 22 mandatory data fields that a person who is entering data about a child has an obligation or to enter into this system, such as it would be a first name, it would be a gender, for instance, yes, that you can choose. As soon as you choose a data field, you see it was showing me 22 mandatory data fields. As soon as I entered something, it decreased to 21, and so on and so on. So for each area, there is specific number of mandatory data fields, which you can immediately see. For instance, when we come to admission area, mandatory data fields is to define what was the reason for child admission into SOS care. For instance, in that case, we could say that the child was abandoned. And then you can also provide a reason, additional details on admission, if this is relevant. I'm sure you can find reason of admission. If not, you can always enter something that there is no information, or choose other and then provide additional explanation. For instance, when we come to health, of course I will not go now to each and every mandatory data field. I just want to give you a feeling how it is being done, what does it mean to have mandatory data, and how one can distinguish mandatory from optional data field. For instance, in health case, it's very important to, one of the mandatory data fields is the status and of disability, whether a child has certain type of disability. And in this case, you can again choose from offered options, such as, for instance, if a child has mental disability, or maybe there is no disability, but it's mandatory data field, and in order in general to save data, you have to choose one or another option. When we come to, for instance, education, and here I especially want to pay your attention, you see in case of education, we have a data field. For instance, level of education at the date of entry, let's say it's lower secondary education and current lower secondary education, you see. Then, respectively, you are also asked to provide additional information, for instance, if child attends SOS educational facility, and most importantly, for instance, information about educational performance. Why I want to pay your attention to this indicator? If you remember the strategic measures that are being collected currently, one of the strategic measures for the area of program is educational performance of child in family-based care and family strengthening. From this scale of you see that educational performance is immediately provides you a possibility to choose from different options. When performance is above average, when performance is average, below average, and really poor performance. Here you have even additional explanation. So once you choose one of those options, respectively, when it comes to aggregating data also to report against strategic measure, the database is one of the key data sources that could be used for data aggregation and data provision for strategic measures. This is where we usually say, and why we usually say that more and more program database is becoming a major data source from which information on key strategic measures or information for other system is being collected and aggregated. And that's the reason why it is highly recommended to use a program database, as it is seen as a system that basically at the end will simplify also reporting processes on the level of national association. And not just for the sake of, it's not just used for the sake of data storage or just for the sake of data historization. But respectively, there is a great attempt in the organization to combine systems and use them for the purpose and for the sake of overall reporting and overall analysis of major trends and major, let's say, strategic indicators. I will not go through each and every area, but what I want to mention is that the logic here is the same. Once all 22 mandatory data fields are entered, system will give you a possibility to save data, but not before. You see, now I cannot save because I have not filled in all the data. Or when there is some discrepancy, system immediately notifies me at the first place that I did not enter the child name, that there is no child ID in the system, so system won't be able to save anything right now. So basically, mistakes are minimized. System is designed in such way. But in general, I also want to mention here that despite the fact that we say that there are mandatory and optional data fields, which logically means that filling in only mandatory data fields would also be okay, we usually say that we highly recommend member associations to fill all the data fields, because only in this case you as an end user of the reports that you can aggregate from the system can really benefit from this data. Otherwise, the data is really not that comprehensive that you could use it for analysis of your program successes, for monitoring and evaluation, for baseline assessments, and so on and so on. So the more you use a program database, the more you use it to a full extent, the bigger benefits you get at the end for your own purposes. And this is a message that we are communicating, and I would also like to mention that this is how it is being right now used by majority of member associations. They are using all, and they are filling in all data fields, not only mandatory ones. Now I want, first of all, give you a possibility to ask questions about what you see right now, about the application and about this, how the child is entered, basically. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So I have two questions. If I hope it's now. The DSAP internship, it's not the same system, no?
No.
It's nothing. It's another system.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you think to synchronize the data of the two system?
It's Ronan, right? Speaking.
Yeah, it's Ronan
Ronan.
from Israel. Hi.
Yeah. Hi. So DS application, which is supposed to be rolled out quite soon, is another system, which is a new version of former sponsorship software. In this case, you are right. These are two different systems, but as you rightly mentioned, the idea is to synchronize to some extent program database and this new sponsorship, which is called DS app system, yeah? And in order to synchronize them, and that's the major reason of today's call, basically, yeah? As we were informed, in future, in order to have children in this sponsorship, new sponsorship software, you have to have in place program database. Either full version, which would be perfect, because then it will be not only for the sake of sponsorship, but also for the sake of program, for the sake of monitoring and evaluation, and so on, which I have just described. But if not a full version, as a minimum, you will have to use a lean version of program database. It's not yet available, and I am not myself in a picture how it will look like, but I have an assumption that it will not look like very different from what we have in a full system. That's why I wanted to show you a full system, so you have a little bit of feeling. What does it mean to add a child? Yeah? What are the key features, or what are the key operations you can do in the system? I think it will be relevant for this lean version as well. Yeah? But in this case, there will be, of course, less data fields that you will have to enter. Already until now, we had several discussions about DSAP versus program database, and according to the information that we received so far from International Office, they mentioned that there will be just few data fields that will be requested to be entered, such as, I don't know, child, first name, probably gender, date of birth. You will have to connect child to the program unit, yeah, so the system can find does it. So if you don't enter your member association, if you do not enter, if you do not show the systems that you are working from Israel, that it's, I don't know, Children's Village Program Arad, and this child belongs to First Family House in Children's Village Program Arad, he or she, a child, will be lost in the system, right? So there will be a minimum requirement to fill some data that will support then DS app to find the child in the system, and then to continue whatever entering a data, whatever is needed for the sake of sponsorship. But the major issue here is that this new DS app, new version of sponsorship, as far as we understand, won't function without PDB, either full or lean versions. This is what we have to be aware of. Yeah?
Yeah, and I have another question, if it's okay.
Please. Yes, please, go on.
So in Israel, we can't put data for the kids for another system. We have it in the government system, but we can't. It's not allowed. It's not illegal. What we need to do for, I don't know if there is with another countries these problems, but it's really a big problem for us.
Yeah, Ronan, I think we cannot cover or answer this question right now.
Okay.
Because it's very specific situation. Usually, data can be entered in case there is consent from a child, young person, or her guardian. Usually, this is an experience that we have in majority of countries. I would say in case of Israel, this is only case when you are mentioning that data cannot be entered in no way. Therefore, we need to cover this issue separately.
Okay.
Maybe you still need to dig into your legislation with the support of a lawyer, qualified lawyer, who could do that in a very professional way and maybe inform us. Maybe there are some solutions, in fact, which you are not aware, of course, because it's not your area of responsibility and not area of your expertise.
Okay.
So, yeah?
Yeah, thank you.
Let's cover it later and separately.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I think no. With the same logic, what I wanted to say, you are entering a caregiver into the system. Yeah, you again can choose specific program. Yeah, I don't know, specific program unit and so on, and enter. Oh, sorry, I am now. This is the right, because this is the right entity for us, because we are entering SOS parent or foster parent usually. Yeah. So if I can enter parent either in CV or foster families, or I can also enter caregiver in youth facility, as you can see, if I choose. So yeah, it's completely up to what type of program unit you have in your country. And when the logic is the same. There are a few data fields about family, SOS parent or foster parent. And in order to add a child or a parent, of course, at place I have to have activated in the system program and the program unit and the house itself. Once I have activated these entities, then where I have SOS Children's Village activated in the system or a youth facility, I can add as many children as you have in the facility. So I think the logic is clear. First, you need to activate the program, unit and house, and then you are entering caregivers and as many children as you have in the system. Coming back to my presentation, I want to tell you that currently, if we are focused on FBC database, currently we have 23 mandatory data fields for child, 8 mandatory data fields for caregiver. In this case, we are asking about caregiver, gender for caregiver. When we say type of caregiver, we say you can choose from SOS parent, community integrated, SOS mother. Is it a couple? Is it a youth facility co-worker in this respect? Or date of entry to the program and so on and so on. In case of house, you have just 3 mandatory data fields. I don't remember them now right now by heart, but it's something like type of house, date of activation of the house, I guess, and yes, there should capacity of the house. Yeah. and also 3 mandatory data fields for the program unit. Currently, these are the major data fields or mandatory data fields for FBC module. However, number of mandatory data fields will increase slightly since May 2017, so as of this month, and this is linked to the fact that system will be, or data fields and the content of the database will be better aligned to the strategy and to the social impact assessment dimensions. There will be slight increase in number of mandatory data fields, nothing specific, I would say. I guess there are no questions about it. On a later stage after this call, I can also provide you a list of mandatory data fields so that you have overview. What do we mean by that in details? And when it comes to the roles and responsibilities, I think this is also important to know. Who is a person who is entering data about children in the full version of PDB? In case of both, actually, FBC and FS modules, this is usually case worker, social worker, who is entering data about the child into the system. So, this person, case worker, social worker in programs, has a full access. So he or she can add data, search for the child, edit information about the child. For instance, if educational performance of a child at the time of entry was on the level of 3, so child's educational performance was below average, let's say, social worker is supposed to do a data review, let's say as a minimum twice a year, and while doing this review, he or she may edit data by moving a child on the scale, which I showed you just a few minutes ago, from below average to at average educational performance. So this is what we mean by saying that child review should take place with a certain frequency, then data is archived, and at the end, a social worker, case manager can print out the report from the system which shows, for instance, educational performance or health development or psychosocial development of the child, and so on and so on. So system is quite supportive in a way, and when one gets used to it, in a very simple way, it can support you to follow up development in a key areas, which is quite useful. Here, what is most important? Usually, social and case workers are the only co-workers who have full access to the child data, because these are the co-workers who work directly with children, and these are co-workers who have in any case access to individual child data. When it comes to the higher level or any other type of co-workers, would that be a program co-workers or co-workers even in the national office, or of course it goes without saying co-workers on the regional or in international office, we have only limited access to the system. So I cannot see any individual child data as a co-worker of the regional office. I can see the data only in aggregated reports, which does not point out any child. It just shows me the situation for entire national association or for the specific program, and so on and so on. This is what I want to show you very precisely right now with this in the system itself. So when it comes to me as a regional coworker, I can aggregate report from the system. I would like, for instance, see report for FBC area. For instance, I'm interested in exit report for children and young people from FBC. So basically, I'm interested, what are the reasons for exit from family-based care services? And let me try now to aggregate this report. And here we are. Here what I want to show you. This is a report for the whole region. So basically it shows the situation in UCB, as you can see. But I want to, for instance, I want to take a look into specific member association. Let's say, would that be, I don't know, SOS Georgia. I want to see, just a second. For example, the report was open for a long time, but I want to see what are the main reasons for child exit from SOS care. So as you can see, major exits, from the reason of major exits, the report distinguishes reunification with family of origin, or a number of children, percentages basically, that became independent, or percentage of children that went on adoption, percentage and number also of children that were transferred to another type of alternative care, but foster or kinship, and separately we have a number of children and percentage that were transferred to residential care, which is also interesting. Also number of deaths, and number of children that left care due to some other reasons. Please don't pay attention to these numbers, because I had opened the system for too long time and the data is not correct now. I need to start from the beginning. I just don't want to lose I just want to show their logic. This is what I, as a regional advisor, can see. You see that here I cannot distinguish the data about any of a child on individual basis. I just see a general data for the region, or maybe for specific country and also for specific facility. In your case, you will be able to see data always for your own country. Here, as a regional coworker, I see the entire region. For you, as a national coworker, you will see information for your national association as a national office coworker. If coworker is working in the, I don't know, SOS Children's Village Ijevan, in Armenia, he or she will see information only for his program. Yeah, so data confidentiality is preserved even here. However, these are the benefits that are very important, but the system is giving these benefits for us, for regional level, for international level, for you as a national level coworker. But when we think of the end users, and when we think of the program database essence, which should support also individual data monitoring, on the level of the system can provide you also information on individual child. But this is available only, as I mentioned, for program level coworkers. I can show you these reports, but now I can show you these reports only because I am in a test system. In a live system, if I want to see, for instance, information about particular child or family, or if I want to do Excel exports where I can see data about specific child, I cannot do this. you see it's closed for me because the data is confidential. But program coworker can easily do this. And these are the benefits of the system for program level coworkers. We can do this on the program level. For instance, I can do Excel export on the level of child. For instance, if you want to know child name, surname, and if you, for instance, are interested to get quickly data, how many children in your program, for instance, have inheritance. This is the data that you will put into separate icon, and this data will be aggregated for you in an Excel file. I have already prepared this report for this conference, not to lose the time, so you can see, just a second. I aggregated data for one program. Here, first name of a child is anonymized, as you can see, but nevertheless, one can, with just few clicks, aggregate information how many children in your service have inheritance. I don't know, house left by parents or relatives, and so on. Of course, you can then filter this information. For instance, I want to keep data on those only who have inheritance, and voila, here you are. From one program, you have only 4 children who have inherited some property from their parents or relatives. So this is also what system can support you with, to play with the data as much as you want and use it for different types of reporting. Would that be reporting for your state stakeholders, or would that be reporting for your donors, or would that be reporting, internal reporting, for some important decision-making purposes? So, coming back to presentation, if you go through this presentation, you will find out type of the reports that can be found and provided in the system. These are aggregated reports that are accessible at all levels, but which do not contain this individual, sensitive, individual data, basically, and also type of individual reports, which are available only for program level coworkers for the sake of data protection and data security. Any questions about this? I mean, of course, I understand it's not easy now to follow maybe this, how to do this aggregation or how to do Excel export and so on, but trust me, in terms of practice, one can learn how to work in the system, I don't know, very quickly and very easily, because the system is really quite self-explanatory. And especially on the level of national office, it's just really very, very easy to aggregate any type of report you are interested in. Any comments from your side? Any questions? Of course, when and if you will consider possibility of implementing a lean version of program database, most probably it will not give you so many possibilities and so many features. In order to get good report, you need to have a data inside of system. Otherwise, your data will be empty. Your report will be empty, yeah? Respectively. In order to be able to use system for comprehensive, holistic purposes, you need to use a full version of PDB. Otherwise, there will be a lean version only for the sake of DSApp, which will, of course, have limited possibilities, respectively. One more time, I really wanted to, and I am happy that I have a chance to share with you the possibilities of this system, so that maybe now when you have one more time to dig into your legislative possibilities of implementing PDB, maybe you will still have a possibility to discuss also usefulness or, I don't know, feasibility of implementing full version of program database. But of course, under conditions that it is possible and not prohibited by your legislation. Of course, this we fully understand. Whenever it is legislative barriers, then we can do nothing. And we just need to find solution for the sake of DSApp. Yeah, you can see in terms of aggregated report, let's try to aggregate report on child admission. It will show us a reason of child admission in the region. Yeah, you see, like in most of the cases, you see that reason for admission is that caregivers are unable to take care for children. So we're talking about social orphans, and if we're talking about death of both parents, it's just 5% of children currently in care among those 16 member associations that are working with database, for whom where they are social, where we have, let's say, children who have lost both parents. Yes. Yes, Vishnya. Thanks for joining. We will finish also soon, and I will provide a presentation afterwards. Yeah. Coming back to the presentation, here, if you just need to get more information on a data protection, all I can inform you about that PDB is registered as an Austrian data protection agency. It complies and correlates with all standards of the European Union. The major inconvenience, as far as I know from the countries, or as far as I was informed up till now, is that the server is physically based in Innsbruck, and this causes in some cases questions from the side of your national agencies on data protection and data procurement. You have to clarify that one more time. We have a comprehensive data protection policy, and we also support member association with additional contracts, agreements, where international office state and provide some, I don't know, guarantees that the system complies with all standards on data protection and all requirements of European Union. I don't know. In most of the cases, it helps. Most important is, and this is a standard for European Union and respectively for all of your countries, to have a consent, either for a guardian, child guardian, or from child or young person, him, herself. These conditions and regulations are clearly written in your state law. And the major recommendation when we start with the training of on program database is at the first place to check what are the regulations, and whenever necessary to engage a legal expert who could provide you very detailed and professional overview on the requirements, state requirements, and maybe also can suggest you solution. For instance, in some countries, solution for data protection is anonymization of child individual data. So some member associations are anonymizing first and the second name of a child. And this is required by law. This is also possible and can be done in our system. In any case, we also always recommend to check legislation before starting implementing database. I will not go into this slide into details, just will mention that 16 member associations are currently implementing program database, and 6 member associations who are currently you as a representatives of those member associations are right now in this call, are not implementing PDB, FBC database due to legislative or other obstacles, as mentioned before, and probably very soon have to take a decision, especially if at least you will be able to implement this lean version that will be developed soon and available for the sake of DSF. Yeah, this is all from my, I would say. I will send you this presentation where you can see some additional details, but now if there are some remaining questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, as far as I understand, there are no specific questions anymore. I hope this presentation was useful, at least to some extent, to get a bit of feeling of what program database is, how does it look, what does it mean to enter mandatory data field. There, I guess, will be same requirements or same system in case of lean version, with even less mandatory data fields. And as far as I've heard, and as far as we all, I think, know, from international office, this lean version will be available for the test sometime in July. Yeah, thank you very much. I wish you good luck with taking final decision. Whatever is decided by you, we will be in touch, because most probably I will be responsible to train your representatives of your member associations on this lean version of program database. So we will be in touch for sure. And meanwhile, also don't hesitate to contact me in case if some additional questions come to your mind, yeah? Please don't wait for separate conference or whatever.
Thank you, Kate. It was really very clear, very comprehensive, very detailed, and I think for me it was again very useful to hear. Not first time, but I think it is very good to have this link. Thanks.
Very good, very good. I am happy. That was the main idea, to be a bit more supportive for you. So you know where to contact me and Jan. We're also greatly cooperating on these issues on alignment, DSF and PDB, and expect same level of cooperation on your side. So please contact us, keep us in copy of your questions, and Jan and I will try to respond to your questions. I will send you a presentation and all necessary materials that I consider necessary and relevant for you.
Yeah,
thanks a lot,
great.
and
Thanks.
have a nice afternoon, evening, and a day.
Thanks a lot, Katie.
Thanks, Rosie. Thanks for
Bye-bye.
recording. Bye.
Bye.